brother told everyone I dropped out, until my Harvard diploma arrived at Mom's house by mail. The envelope hit the doormat with that thick, expensive thunk. Not paper-thin junk mail, not a pizza flyer. Something rigid that made my mom pause with her keys still in the lock. My brother was mid-story in the living room, loud enough to be heard from the entryway, and I could hear my own name in his mouth like a wet slap. And then she just quit, like vanished, he was saying, laughing like it was cute. My mom bent, picked up the envelope, and the red shield seal in the corner caught the light. Her fingers froze around it. Mine did too, except mine were wrapped around a glass of water, so tightly the rim pressed into my palm. I stayed in the hallway for a second longer than normal, half behind the wall, heart hammering in that stupid way it does when you're about to be witnessed. Not just seen, witnessed. My mom turned the envelope over once like she was checking if it was real, and the return address was so unmistakable I felt my stomach drop and lift at the same time. Harvard University. Cambridge, Ma. The typeface was crisp. The paper was heavier than it had any right to be. Behind me, my brother's voice kept rolling, warm with attention. I'm not trying to be mean, I'm just saying she couldn't handle it. Not everyone's built for school. Then my mom called my name, not loudly. Just that sharp, confused, come here right now tone mothers have without raising their voice. Lena, she said, why is Harvard sending something to my house? It was a Sunday night dinner, the kind my mom insists on like it's a sacrament. The same table, the same pot roast smell, the same lemony dish soap, the same jokes that always land on the same person. Me. I've been dreading it all week. Not because I didn't want to see my mom, because I knew my brother would be there, and my brother, Evan, treats family gatherings like open mic night. If he can get a laugh, he'll throw anyone under the bus, especially me, because I'm the quiet one and quiet people make easy targets. I'd already sat through 30 minutes of him describing my dropout era like it was a Netflix limited series, and I kept my face neutral, stirring my drink slowly, counting my breaths, telling myself, just get through the night. Don't give in to reaction. So when my mom held up that envelope and the room went suddenly, painfully quiet, it felt like the universe had yanked the rug out from under the script. Evan leaned around the corner of the couch, eyebrows already lifted, grin ready. What, he called. Did Lena sign up for another scam again? He laughed at his own joke. My dad, who'd been half watching the game, looked up with that annoyed expression he saves for drama. My Aunt Denise, who always comes to these dinners like she's collecting gossip for later, leaned forward in her chair. My mom walked closer, still holding the envelope like it might buzz. Lena, she repeated, softer now. Why is this from Harvard? I could have lied. My brain offered me that old reflex option. Laugh it off, change the subject, make it smaller. But my throat closed around the lie before it could leave. My hands were shaking. My cheeks were hot. And I realized with this weird clarity that Evan had been comfortable lying about me for so long because I've been quietly doing the work of keeping peace. Meaning, I've been quietly swallowing humiliation so nobody had to feel uncomfortable. I took one step forward, then another, like my legs were moving through thick water. It's mine, I said. My voice sounded too thin. Evan snorted. Sure it is. My mom blinked fast, eyes flicking between me and the envelope. Mine, she echoed. Why is it coming here? Because I didn't want it sent to my apartment, I said, and the words came out faster now, as if once the first truth landed, the rest had to follow. The mail gets stolen, and I didn't want it bent or lost. Evan sat up straighter, grin faltering. Wait, he said. What is that? My mom's fingers tightened around the edge of the envelope. She didn't open it yet. She just stared at the seal again, then at me like she was trying to match me to a version of me she understood. Lena, she said carefully, what did you do? And I heard it then, the smallness in her voice. Not disbelief exactly. More like fear that she'd been wrong about me and didn't know how to hold that. It's my diploma, I said. The silence that followed wasn't cinematic. It was awkward, thick, full of tiny sounds people make when they don't know what to do. My aunt's fork scraping a plate, my dad clearing his throat, Evan's sneakers squeaking on the hardwood as he shifted. Evan laughed first, because he always tries laughter before anything else. Okay, he said, shaking his head. No, you don't just get a Harvard diploma in the mail like an Amazon package. My mom's eyes watered instantly. A diploma? She whispered. From Harvard. Yeah, I said, and the word tasted unreal even though I'd said it to myself 1,000 times in my own head. Harvard. Evan leaned back, mouth twisted like he'd bitten something sour. You didn't go to Harvard. I looked at him. I did, I said. Edo. My dad finally spoke, voice skeptical, like he was about to correct me on a fact. Lena, he said slowly, you told us you left school. I left that school, I said. I could feel my pulse in my ears. Not everything. My mom took a shaky breath and, with hands that trembled, slid her finger under the envelope flap. The sound of it opening was stupidly loud. She pulled out a thick folder, cream paper, crisp edges, and inside was the document with the shield at the top and my name printed in a way that made my stomach flip. Because it was real, it existed outside my laptop and my private life and the nights I thought I'd never make it. She covered her mouth with her hand. My Aunt Denise made a noise like she'd swallowed air wrong. Oh my God, she whispered. Evan went pale in a way that made his freckles stand out. Let me see, he said too quickly, standing up. My mom pulled the diploma closer to her chest instinctively, like it was fragile, like it was a baby bird. Lena, she said, voice cracking, why didn't you tell me? And right then, all the emotions tried to climb out of me at once. Pride, relief, rage, grief, this bitter little laugh that wanted to come out because of course the truth had to arrive by mail like a slapstick prop in the middle of the one room where my brother felt most powerful. It's complicated, I said, and I hated how small that sounded because it wasn't complicated. It was just painful. Here's the broader story, since I can already hear the comments. No, I didn't secretly become a billionaire genius overnight. No, Harvard didn't call me out of nowhere and say, we need you, Queen. I didn't fake a diploma on Canva. I did a real program, the kind that takes years if you're working and paying rent and trying to keep your head above water. 4 years ago, I was enrolled at a state university for undergrad. Evan and my parents love to talk about that part like it's the whole story. Lena dropped out. What actually happened was my life fell apart in a really unglamorous way. Financially, mentally, physically, like it does for a lot of people, except my family treats struggle like a moral failure. I was working 2 jobs, taking a full course load, and trying to pretend I was fine because my family's favorite sport is comparing siblings. Evan was the golden child who just made things work, which is family code for Evan had help, and also Evan's mistakes were forgiven faster. When I started having panic attacks, I didn't tell anyone. When I couldn't sleep, I didn't tell anyone. When my grades slipped, I didn't tell anyone. Then my landlord raised rent, my car died, and I got sick, like properly sick. Not a sniffle. I ended up in urgent care with a fever that wouldn't quit and a doctor who asked me if I'd been eating enough, and I laughed, because the answer was no, not really, unless you count pretzels and stress. I took a leave of absence. Not a dramatic, I quit school forever declaration. A leave. I told my parents it was temporary because I believed it and because saying the full truth, I'm drowning, felt like asking them to hold something they just drop and judge. Evan found out and immediately turned it into a story where he was the responsible one. He told our relatives I couldn't hack it. He told mutual friends I gave up. He told people I was taking time to find myself, which is the kind of condescending phrase you use when you want to sound kind while implying someone is flaky. The worst part? Well, I corrected him early on. Just once, he laughed and said, relax, it's not that deep. Then he told my mom, see, she's sensitive. That's why she couldn't do school. So I stopped correcting him. I went quiet. Not because I agreed, but because every time I fought, the family treated me like the source of the tension, not the person being lied about. It's exhausting trying to defend yourself in a room that enjoys misunderstanding you. During that leave, I worked a lot. I got a full-time job in admin at a nonprofit. I paid down debt. I went to therapy in secret at first because my dad thinks therapy is for people who want attention. I rebuilt my routine one boring day at a time. Pack lunch, pay bills, take vitamins, sleep. I started taking one online course at night, then another because my brain missed school in this painful way like missing a language you grew up speaking. One of my instructors mentioned extension programs and continuing education, the kind of thing people do when they have jobs and lives and can't just move into a dorm and reinvent themselves. I started researching it too, like I always do when I'm scared but determined. That's how I found the Harvard Extension School programs, specifically the ALM track in my field. I read the requirements, the admissions pathway, the course expectations. I read stories from people who'd done it while working full-time. I sat there in the dark with my laptop, glowing, and felt something I hadn't felt in a while: a plan. I didn't tell my family because I already knew what would happen. If I told them before I got in, Evan would have laughed and told everyone, "She's delusional." If I told them while I was doing it, they would have asked invasive questions like they were rooting for me to fail. If I told them after, I worried, honestly, that it still wouldn't count, that they'd find a way to shrink it, that Evan would turn it into, "Well, it's not real Harvard," or my dad would say, "Yeah, but you didn't go there like a real student," as if the work only matters if you suffer in a specific approved way. So I did it privately. I applied. I took the required entry classes. I wrote papers after work with my hair in a messy bun, eating microwaved leftovers. I went to class on Zoom with my camera on even when I was exhausted because I wanted to show up like a person who belonged there. I studied on weekends while Evan posted brunch photos and my mom texted me, "When are you going to settle down?" Like my life wasn't happening unless she could narrate it. There were nights I cried at my desk because I couldn't get a paragraph to behave and my brain felt slow and I was sure I'd been arrogant to think I could do this. There were mornings I dragged myself to work on 4 hours of sleep and smiled at coworkers like I wasn't living two lives. There were months I didn't buy anything non-essential because tuition ate my spare money like fire. I stopped going out. I stopped traveling. I lived in spreadsheets and deadlines and that weird stubborn grit you only understand if you've ever tried to build something quietly while people keep insisting you're nothing. Evan kept telling people I dropped out. At Thanksgiving last year, he raised his glass and said, to me and Tara, yes, he lumped himself with our cousin like they were a duo, for being the only ones who finished college. My mom laughed. My dad clapped him on the back. I sat there chewing turkey that tasted like cardboard and stared at the tablecloth pattern until it blurred. I didn't correct him, because I knew something he didn't. I was finishing. I was just finishing in a way that wouldn't give him the chance to sabotage it. When I completed my capstone, I submitted the final project at 11:58 p.m. 2 minutes before the deadline, hands shaking, heart in my throat. I didn't do a victory dance. I stared at the confirmation email like it was a trick. Then I walked in my bathroom and sat on the floor and cried so hard my face went numb because the relief wasn't just I'm done. It was I survived. The acceptance of completion came in an email a few weeks later. I read it 3 times. I took a screenshot. I didn't post it. I didn't tell my family. I told my best friend, who screamed into the phone and made me promise I'd celebrate. I told my therapist, who smiled like she'd been holding her breath with me for years. I told my boss, who said, "We're proud of you," and I almost lost it right there in her office because I realized how starved I was for simple, uncomplicated pride. The diploma takes time to ship. They also send digital verification, but the physical paper, thick, formal, ridiculous, comes by mail. I didn't want to send to my apartment because packages disappear, and I didn't want to risk losing the one tangible proof my family couldn't argue with. So I used my mom's address. I didn't tell her it was coming because I wanted to hand it to her myself, quiet, private, just us, without Evan narrating it. And then the universe, which clearly has a messy sense of humor, delivered it on the exact Sunday Evan was in my mom's living room performing my failure for an audience. Back in that moment, my mom sat down hard in the nearest chair, diploma still in her hands. She looked at the paper again, tracing my name with her finger like she was checking it wouldn't smear. "Lena," she whispered, Why didn't you tell me?" "I would've." Evan cut in, voice sharp now, scared. "This doesn't make sense," he said. "You don't just, what even is this? Is it like one of those online things?" I looked at him. "You mean like the online thing you used during COVID for your certificate and bragged about for 6 months?" I asked, and my voice surprised me with a bite in it. My dad's expression shifted, suspicious. Is it actually Harvard? He asked, as if Harvard was a brand of cereal that could be faked. My Aunt Denise leaned forward, eyes bright. It says Harvard University. She breathed like she couldn't wait to tell someone. My mom's eyes filled with tears again. My baby, she said, and her voice cracked. Oh my God. Evan's face went tight. Why was it sent here? He asked, latching onto the only angle he could use to regain control. Why wouldn't she have it sent to her own place unless? Because I didn't want it stolen, I said. And because I didn't want you to know until I was done. That landed like a slap. Evan blinked, offended. Why wouldn't you want me to know? I let out a small laugh, not happy. Are you serious? I asked. He spread his hands. I joke around, he said, like that excused everything. But I would have supported you. My dad scoffed. Supported, he muttered, and it was aimed at Evan, but also at me, like the concept was embarrassing. I looked between them and felt that familiar urge to shrink. But then I saw my diploma in my mom's hands. My name, printed real, and something held me upright. You told everyone I dropped out, I said, voice steady now. You told people I quit because I couldn't handle it. You told Mom's friends at church. You told Aunt Denise. You told my cousin's fiancé at that barbecue. You told people I'd never finish anything. I looked directly at him. You didn't just joke around. You built a story where I was your cautionary tale. Evan's cheeks flushed. I didn't. Yes, you did, I said. And I let you because every time I defended myself, everyone acted like I was the one causing drama. My mom's face crumpled. Honey, I love you, I said to her quickly, because I needed her to know the truth before she tried to smooth it. But you laughed. You nodded along. You never once said, stop telling people that about her. My mom cried openly then. I didn't know, she whispered. I thought, he said. That's the point, I said. My throat burned, but I kept going. You believed him because it fit the version of me you all expect. The fragile one. The one who can't keep up. The one you can talk about like she's not in the room. Evan's eyes went bright with anger now, because anger is easier than shame. So what? He snapped. You did some program, and now you're better than us. I almost laughed again, because of course he'd try that. Of course he'd turn my achievement into arrogance to protect his ego. No, I said. I'm not better than you. I'm just not who you said I was. My dad cleared his throat, uncomfortable. He stared at the diploma like it might accuse him. Well, he said finally, voice stiff, congratulations. It sounded like he was forced to say it at gunpoint. My mom stood up suddenly and wrapped her arms around me. She smelled like dish soap and perfume. Her hands clutched my back like she was trying to anchor me. I'm proud of you, she sobbed into my shoulder. I hugged her back, and my eyes burned because despite everything, I wanted those words more than I wanted to admit. Evan stood off to the side, arms crossed, jaw clenched. I could see the calculation in his face. How to twist this so he didn't lose. How to make himself the victim of my attack. He glanced at my aunt, then at my dad, searching for backup. My Aunt Denise, of all people, delivered the first real consequence without even trying. She lifted her phone and said, brightly, I'm telling the family group chat right now. Everyone's going to freak. Please don't, I said instantly, and my voice came out sharper than I meant. My aunt blinked. Why not? This is amazing. I took a breath. Because, I said, choosing my words carefully, I didn't do this to win a family scoreboard. I did it for me. And I don't want to turn into gossip. My aunt looked mildly offended, like I denied her a hobby. But she put her phone down. Evan scoffed. So you wanted to surprise us, he said, mocking. Goo. No, I said, but my voice went quiet. I wanted to protect it. That shut him up, just for a second. Dinner after that was weird. My mom kept looking at me like she discovered a new version of me and didn't know what to do with her. My dad avoided my eyes and asked me logistical questions. How long did it take? How much did it cost? Like if he could reduce it to numbers, he wouldn't have to apologize for underestimating me. Evan barely spoke. When he did, it was little jabs disguised as curiosity. So are you going to put it on LinkedIn? Do they make you wear the robe? Did you actually go there? Each question was an attempt to create doubt, to find an angle where he could stand above me again. I answered calmly. I didn't over-explain. I didn't beg him to understand. That's a huge shift for me, by the way. Normally, I'd start justifying myself like a lawyer defending a client. But I realized that night, I don't owe him a defense. The diploma is not a debate topic. After dinner, when my mom walked me to the door, she held the diploma folder against her chest like she was afraid it would disappear. "Can I keep it here for a night?" she asked, eyes wide. "Just let me look at it again." I laughed softly. "Yeah," I said. "You can keep it for a night." She squeezed my hands. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm sorry I didn't know." "I didn't tell you," I said, and I meant it as a fact, not forgiveness. "But I also didn't think you'd protect it if you did." My mom flinched, and I hated that I'd hurt her, but it was true. On my way out, Evan followed me to the porch. The cold air made his breath puff white. He shoved his hands in his pockets like a sulky teenager, not a grown man. "You know," he said, without looking at me, "you could have told me." I stared at him. "Why?" I asked. He finally looked at me then, eyes narrowed. "Because I'm your brother." I nodded slowly. "Exactly," I said. "That's why." His jaw tightened. "So now everyone's going to think I'm an asshole," he muttered. I almost laughed, but it came out as a tired exhale. "Evan," I said, "people think what they see." He scoffed. "Whatever," he snapped, then added, quieter, almost reluctant, "Congrats." It wasn't warm. It wasn't generous. It was the bare minimum, tossed like a crumb. But even that crumb told me something. He knew. He knew what he'd done. I drove home with my hands steady on the wheel, but my chest felt hollow, like I'd been bracing for a punch for years, and it finally didn't come, and now my body didn't know what to do with the leftover adrenaline. Later that night, my phone lit up with messages anyway, because of course it did. My mom, unable to hold it in, had texted one of her friends, and word spread like wildfire. Cousins, old classmates, people I haven't spoken to since high school. Some are genuinely kind. Some are nosy. Some are the worst kind. "Wow, I didn't know you were smart like that." As if intelligence is a surprise party. Evan didn't text me. The next week, my mom called and asked if she could frame a copy of the diploma. I said yes, because it mattered to her and because it felt like a small repair. My dad sent a thumbs-up emoji, which honestly made me laugh because he cannot do emotional depth if it would kill him. Evan started telling people he always knew I'd do something impressive, which would have made me furious a year ago, but now it mostly makes me tired. He wants to rewrite history to save face. Fine, I'm not participating. Here's the part that sticks with me the most. The diploma wasn't the win. The win was realizing I don't have to live inside the version of me my brother narrates for other people. I don't have to keep proving myself in rooms that enjoy misunderstanding me. I can be quiet and still be real. I can be private and still be accomplished. I can protect what matters to me without begging for permission. And yeah, petty detail, but I'll admit it. There was something almost poetic about the fact that the truth arrived in the mail, addressed to my mom's house, like a physical object that didn't care about Evan's stories. He could talk. He could laugh. He could announce my failure at every dinner table for years. But he couldn't out-talk paper. He couldn't out-joke a seal. He couldn't snort loud enough to drown out my name printed under Harvard's shield. That envelope didn't just deliver a diploma. It delivered the moment my family had to sit in the discomfort of being wrong about me, out loud, in real time, without me begging them to listen.